So welcome everyone to the Contrarians. This panel discussion is brilliant or bad. We're talking about Guns N' Roses today. So usual stuff we got to go over. Just if everyone can try to be as concise as you can, so that we leave enough time for everyone to give their thoughts. We are, of course, doing this on behalf of the Contrarians YouTube channel, which you can find on, funnily enough, YouTube. You can always, give a like and subscribe if you like what you see. And if you want to join part of these discussions, we also have a Patreon where you can become a member and get in on the conversation yourself. There's also some other things I'm supposed to plug, like there's Ko-fi, Teespring. If you're interested in those things, check the description and you can find all that information. Okay, so enough about that. Welcome, everybody. It's nice to have all of you here. And we're going to have, I'm sure, a lively discussion about Guns N' Roses. Now, this is the brilliant or bad panel format. So we're going to go around one at a time and basically give brief thoughts on whether you think Guns N' Roses is brilliant or bad. Once we're done, if there's time, we can have sort of a general discussion and engage the content in that sort of way. But until then, we're going to dive right into it. So I'm just going to pick an order in order of how you all are appearing on my Zoom screen. So not in terms of importance or anything like that. Let's dive right into it. Pete Jones, Guns N' Roses, brilliant or bad?
Oh, good evening. It's nice to see everybody.
Oh, Joe, can you hear us?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, we're going with Pete first.
Okay.
Oh, thanks. All right, Pete.
Again, it's nice to see everybody. I have real mixed feelings about this band, and I have since their debut came out. And one of the things that I'm contrarian amongst my own thoughts. So the debut, it's what it is. So I think the debut is brilliant. I'm just going to say that from top to bottom. I think it's a tremendous record. It's exceptionally well performed. It is one of the most brilliantly produced record. The sound on it is extraordinary. And I like the songs from beginning to end. But after the debut, I don't think they're so brilliant. I think they fall off the cliff, actually. And I don't see them as a legacy band. I don't see them as a highly influential band. All the bands that I look at afterwards, I see very little Guns N' Roses influence in them. I see a lot of Guns N' Roses influences that they got from the Stones and Aerosmith and bands like that. But I don't see, and I was playing in clubs 7 nights a week back then. We weren't changed or swayed by what Guns N' Roses was really doing. So from that aspect, we didn't see them as influential there. I think the big things that happened with them is that they were a product of perfect timing. They were a product of being the right thing with a whole series of, the whole charts at the time were so mushy and watered down and weak. And this was a straightforward band. They looked nasty. They weren't the glammy hairbandish stuff. They were just old school, kind of nasty looking. And that appealed. And the debut's numbers and legacy of that album show it. But after that, I think they were a product of videos. Every year they were either the number 1 or 2 most played videos of those years. I just didn't see it. So debut is brilliant, but overall, I say no.
All right. Okay. Well, there we go. We got our first review.
Oh crap! I was muted.
No. No worries, Grant.
Right.
Well, here, why are you going next then?
This was my topic, so hold on, wait a minute. So Pete,
Yes.
so do you think it was like a reaction to I'm slow. Why is it doing that? All right. Anyway, is it coming across okay, Nick?
You're a bit choppy, but there's nothing we can really do about it because it's got to be your connection. But don't worry about it. Just,
anyway, Pete, do you think that Guns N' Roses was more of a reaction to what was going on at the time? Like you've got the hair metal thing coming up. Aerosmith is not really what Aerosmith was. Do you
No,
think that do you think that Guns N' Roses kind of filled that void? That bad boy thing, that you know what I mean?
well, and I think it was a temporary void because as soon as we get to 1990, or 89, when Pump comes out, Pump takes over everything. They're the biggest band. They're the biggest everything. Their videos are everywhere. All the copycats wanted to reproduce their version of Pump. That was the influence. And that's where I see the difference. Nobody was trying to recreate Appetite. I never saw it. But everybody said, post that, we've got to have where's our Heart did it, all the other bands, where's the copy of what Pump did? And that was the influence that I saw Aerosmith have that I didn't see Guns have. So that's why I was saying that, yeah, they're probably a perfect filler, perfect timing, right place, right time, great sound. I'm not dismissing the sound or the first record because it's tremendous. But losing Steven Adler really killed them, and losing Izzy also really hurt. They weren't the same band. And it didn't take too long, but all of a sudden, they weren't what that album was. And for me, yes, they sold a lot of records, but you know what? Vanilla Ice sold 4 million copies of an album. So sales to me is a kind of a take it or leave it kind of thing. But to answer your question, yes, I believe that they were the perfect filler at the perfect time. And within a 2-3 year period, yes. After that, nothing for me.
All right.
Well,
Well,
there
here,
you go.
Grant, sorry, I didn't know that you were actually the one who picked this topic. So would you like to go next,
Well, it
or would
was
you
a
like to go
fluke
last?
thing. I was riding in the car with my daughter, and "Sweet Child of Mine" came on the radio. And immediately, whenever I hear that song, I just cringe because I think it's just like,
All right. Well, do you want to
that's
get?
all I have to say. But anyway, I thought, well, that might be a good topic because think about it. It's like there's two different camps: people that can't stand Guns N' Roses, but then there are people that just think they're God's gift. And I was thinking, well, that would be a great topic because I don't get it. And I'd love for someone to just be here and say, well, Grant, this is what you're missing. Because for one, I don't have any problem with the songs. They were overplayed. The only album that Guns N' Roses seems to exist on is the first album. I don't know anything about, what Patience was on, like Lies or something. FM rock radio, at least in Central Ohio, Sweet Child of Mine, Patience, Welcome to the Jungle, over and over again. I don't get it. And that's what I was asking Pete about. I was like saying, well, was it just timing? Because it took a year for the Guns N' Roses album to even take off. Was it all timing? I mean,
to be fair, I'm in Central Ohio.
Seems like I don't think they were ever worthy of it because they're just some crappy Aerosmith cover band, pretty much. I just don't get it. And I thought, what a great topic because they're so polarizing. It's like Genesis. You got the people that like the Peter Gabriel stuff, and then you got people that like the poppy, same kind of thing. But now I lost what I was trying to say. But I mean, they had some good songs. I mean, Slash is a great artist. They were a train wreck of a band. I mean, what I got out of it, I read Slash's book and I read Steven Adler's book, and they're both great books to read. If you want to know how things, if you're a mess, you want to relate to being a mess, read those books. I just don't get it. I think Axl Rose as a singer is just absolutely horrible. It's like someone beating a cat. I don't get it. And I thought maybe I could understand. I thought this would be a great topic. I don't get it. Pete doesn't get it. I'd be interested to know. And I hope someone here loves them because I don't freaking get it.
All right. Well, if nobody else here likes Guns N' Roses, I like Guns N' Roses, and I'll try and
Okay,
make it make
I
sense
need you
for
to
but-
explain it to me, Nick.
Well,
As a
I'll go last
professional.
in case we run out of time. You know, I want everyone else to get their voice in. So, Bicycle Legs, why don't you go up next? Guns N' Roses, brilliant or bad? Oh,
think
is
we've lost
Bicycle Legs
Bicycle
frozen?
Legs.
Bicycle Legs is frozen.
Okay.
Oh.
Unfortunately, Grant, I don't think I'm going to be much help to you.
That's fine. You're on my team.
Oh,
Teddy, you wanna come on?
Want me to go?
Okay, Bicycle Legs. It looks like we're getting some issues
Yeah,
with your
I got a
connection.
show to
So
go to. I got a
Let's-
show to go to in a half hour.
Joe probably likes Guns N' Roses.
No,
let's-
okay. Here, I kind of, it's kind of ditto to what Pete said. I thought the first album was, I wouldn't say brilliant. I thought it was great. It was a great departure of what was coming out at the time. And to Grant's point, yeah, it took a while to take off. Because I mean, I saw them open up for Alice Cooper, and they almost canceled the show because they couldn't even sell half the UIC pavilion at the University of Illinois Chicago. So what eventually happened is Sweet Child of Mine hit, and then Welcome to the Jungle, and then it became so overplayed. I don't know. Everything subsequently after that, it became more of the band's image than the actual music that they put out. Axl causing riots and showing up late to shows, Slash and Duff being drug addicts and alcoholics. So there's some brilliance in the first album. It just got played to death. Honestly, contrarian thought in my heart, I actually don't mind Chinese Democracy because I think it's so different. I thought Use Your Illusion 1 and 2 was just, they could have made one decent album and it was just total filler. But in the beginning, I enjoyed it because I saw it as a departure and I saw it as a transition away from the whole pop hair metal garbage. And it was this grittier LA scene that eventually, you had Jane's Addiction come out. And then you had bands like Ministry out of Chicago come, doing that industrial metal. And it seemed to transition even into the Seattle scene. Duff is from Seattle. So that's what I saw. But the problem with the first album, it just got played to death. And they got way overrated. When you got Rolling Stone, critically saying that they're God's greatest gift to rock and roll, that's way too much. They weren't that good. But unfortunately, some brilliance in the first album was way overplayed. And then the band's image took over from the actual music and their image was terrible. So that's where I stand on Guns N' Roses.
They kind of like filled in a void or a niche somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, I remember touring. I toured the where the Expos used to play when I went up to Montreal, and all they talked about was how the Guns N' Roses caused the riot because I think that's the show where James got his arm burned from Metallica. They did that tour, and Guns refused to go on, and it was a huge riot in Montreal. And the same thing happened in St. Louis because he wouldn't play. It was just garbage. So I got sick and tired of that on top of the album getting played to death.
All right.
All right, Nick, it's
Well,
good. All right, so far,
I
not
guess
looking good for you, Nick.
Yeah, I might have some splaining to do at the end there. But Bicycle Legs, well, it looks like we got you back. So why don't you
okay, that's good.
Yeah.
Okay, and as I said, Grant, unfortunately, I'm not going to be much help to you here. The first album, I mean, for me, Sweet Child of Mine was just undeniable. It was a hit. It was just a well-written song that was always going to be a hit, I think. And I think that really carried the album. I don't know how big it was over in North America, but Paradise City was a big hit here too. And I mean, that album's pretty good. I agree with Joe. Was it Joe? I've never really liked Axl Rose's voice. I know it was Grant, wasn't it? Yeah.
That was me.
Yeah, I've never really liked his voice. But for me, the problem with Guns N' Roses is that it's just the biggest case of arrested development. If you look at what happens after Appetite, it's just, it becomes, you get GNR Lies, which isn't really an album, it's 2 EPs stuck together. It has no real coherence to it at all. And then you wait about 3 years, and then you get Use Your Illusion 1 and 2. Massively bloated, overblown albums. I mean, between the two of them, they're both double albums on vinyl. You know, they're nearly 80 minutes each. So you're talking about, you know, 2.5 hours of music all up. And for me, there's maybe between that whole 2.5 hours, there's maybe 3 or 4 good songs. The rest of it is just really bloated and overblown. It feels like that's the point where Axl's ego just went into overdrive. I think the best parts on most of those albums are the stuff that Izzy wrote. And so, yeah, when he left the band after that, really, for me, all hope was lost. And what do you get after that? You get an album of cover versions, which are, you know, do we really want to hear Guns N' Roses doing a bunch of cover versions? Not really. I think they did it because they just didn't know what else to do. And then, you know, then the whole band imploded, you know, Duff left, Slash left. They take 300 years to make an album. They record it 46 times. I'm exaggerating slightly, but they have Josh Freese involved in Chinese Democracy at one stage. And I think Josh Freese is a great, great musician. He is probably the only guy who could play with a band like Guns N' Roses and also play with a band like Devo and fit in both. And yet they didn't end up using him on the record. They, like, a couple of his writing credits got used, but none of his playing got used. Chinese Democracy, credit to Axl for trying a bit of something new, I suppose. But for me, it just doesn't work. And they really have been a nostalgia act ever since. So that's the big problem for me with Guns N' Roses, just complete arrested development after that first album. So that's my thoughts.
So I'm assuming you're not a big fan of Live and Let Die.
Not their version of it, no.
Oh my God, that's cool.
I love
every
Paul
time
McCartney,
they play that here on like QFM 96, I want to jump out of a building.
I don't like their version of Knocking on Heaven's Door either. That's terrible.
Oh,
You're not positive tonight, Grant. You're not positive.
I see. This is like see, Peter. I'm trying to be positive, but I can't today.
all right. Well, I'm starting to feel like I might have, come into a trap tonight. But
Nick, you're good. I can hardly wait to hear what you're going to say.
at the risk of, at the risk of stacking the numbers even higher, Jamie, Guns N' Roses, brilliant or bad?
Well, first of all, I believe it only takes one iconic album to make a band iconic. I mean, Sex Pistols, they only released one album. Boston, known mainly for that first iconic album. They're an iconic band. So Appetite's an iconic album. It will be here as an iconic album long after we're gone. And this band right now today is filling up stadiums in 2022. So that's like 55,000 people. So yes, you cannot deny that they're an iconic band. Now, do you like the albums? That's an opinion, of course. But the first album, it's funny because we were talking about how it took a year to take off. I think it took a year to take off because it was a little bit dirtier, a little bit almost heavier than what we were listening to on the radio. And the radio was scared of it. Swear words left and right all over this album. Like, the crazy people listen to that album. And then they released Sweet Child of Mine. And it was kind of more pleasant on the ears. And that's when the album took off. And then people got into Welcome to the Jungle, even though that was the first single. They kind of came back to it. So yeah, and it's funny that they were so, I mean, it came out in my senior year of high school. It was like the heavier stuff. And now today, we don't even call it heavy metal. We call it hard rock because times change and the definition of metal changes. So Brilliant. I would say for this first album, GNR Lies at the time was cool. We didn't know. We thought when Lies came out, we all assumed this band's going to put out, album after album. It's hard to put out a bunch of iconic albums. No one's going to be Led Zeppelin. Look, 1, 2, 3, 4 Houses of the Holy, one after the Beatles, one iconic album. That's hard to do. Even Michael Jackson, the king of pop, has only put out really 2 iconic albums. If you want to call Bad iconic, I don't know. Thriller, Bad, I wouldn't call Dangerous, or Off the Wall. Is that the name of that one album from?
I don't know, but I'm glad that you can name them.
Yeah,
I wouldn't call them iconic. So the king of pop himself is only known for 2. So yeah, and these albums here, yeah, they're bloated. I mean, Civil War is a great song. November Rain, he's kind of channeling like a big epic Elton John type feel in it. And I think the video is over the top, but great. 14 Years is a great song. Even Don't Cry is cool. So yeah, is it a little bloated? So is the White Album, but I love that album too. And I call this one album. They both came out on the same day.
I don't know about the White Album.
No,
the White Album is
very
a little
controversial
bloated, but I
there,
still
Jamie.
love it.
Whoa.
The White Album's
No,
almost
you're going to
known
get
for
a
being
lot
a
of hate
bloated
mail
album.
from that one.
No.
Bicycle
Most
Legs
people
brought up-
think the White Album's a little bit bloated. We are on the
Most
Contrarians.
people, I don't know those most people.
So Bicycle Legs brought up the cover album. I love The Farm. I think that's phenomenal.
Yeah, that's a waste of time, that album. I do
Yeah,
like
that song-
their cover
that's
of
great.
Sympathy for the Devil, which was
like a
on the
bootleg to
Interview
me.
for a Vampire soundtrack. To me, that's the last real Guns N' Roses song they kind of recorded. I mean, they have a new one out now. Is it called like School Rules or Cool Schools, or I don't know what it's called, but it ain't making any ripples on the radio player. I don't think anyone really cares about it. So that says a lot. These older bands, it's hard to get a hit on the radio. They can tour, they can fill up arenas and stadiums, but once you're over the age of 50, it's hard to get a hit on the radio. So yeah, I mean, when I was growing up, my circle of friends, we all dug GNR. I didn't know anyone who hated them. As you get older and with the internet, you meet other people from other circles and you get more opinion. You're like, oh, I didn't know Bob Seger was so hated by so many people until I got on the internet and met other people from other parts of the country and world. So yeah, and as far as QFM goes, playing the same Guns N' Roses songs over and over, they also play the same 4 Led Zeppelin songs over and over.
I know, and they've done that for what, 20 years?
And so it's hard to go off QFM as the the test grounds for how a band. Maybe you go to New York and you hear a lot more GNR on the radio.
Well, I figure that everything's homogenized now in the whole United States, and I figure all the playlists are all the same everywhere you go. I mean, they're saying pretty much they're all pretty much staying in the same thing. Everything's owned by Clear Channel. I'm sure they pull out the same playlists everywhere they go.
Yeah, I
not
listen
that
to the radio
QFM's
a
owned
long
by
time.
not that QFM's owned by Clear Channel. I'm just saying.
I'm going to say Brilliant, but I don't go around listening to GNR these days. When they come up on my shuffle on my phone in the car, I'm like, cool. But I don't sit down and put the needle on Appetite and listen all the way through. Not very often.
I think Jamie was partially correct on one point. Yeah, the radio was not interested at the time, but I think even more importantly, and we cannot overlook this, MTV was more important than radio. And it was becoming more important as it went. MTV would not play their videos at first. That's why there was a lag from 87 into 88. Management made a deal with MTV. Play our video 1 time a night for the next 3 days. It became the most requested video that year. All of a sudden, it explodes. There's a parallel. Def Leppard did exactly the same problem. Hysteria came out the same year. Nothing Here's a video that everybody jumped on. They're selling 500,000 copies a week. When you talk to a lot of people I know about November Rain, they don't remember the song. They're like, oh, is that where the guy with the hat standing in the rain? They don't remember the song. They remember the video. And the proof that they were always in the top 10 with multiple videos, every year they came out, the video was pushing everything. Movies were accused at the time of having a movie so they could sell a soundtrack. I'm suggesting that Guns N' Roses had songs to sell videos, and that made them bigger than they really probably were, at least in my opinion. I don't know how anybody else feels on that.
So what you're basically saying, Pete, is that Guns N' Roses were the late 80s, early 90s version of Duran Duran.
Interesting.
Except I think Duran Duran's a great band and they're highly talented, but that's a different subject.
Sorry,
Yeah,
guys.
Duran Duran's way more talented than Guns.
They're a great band.
Let's just let's make sure we're
But I
fair to
get your
Jamie
point.
here. And Jamie, any last words, or are you done with your
Sorry, Jamie, didn't mean to cut in on you.
Oh,
there. My
no,
bad.
that's all right. No more last words. I don't know about the Duran Duran, more talented, less talented.
Come on, Rio is a 5-star album, and we know that. Or I know that.
I have Rio. Is one of the first albums I ever bought. I like Rio.
First album I bought on CD in 1985 was Rio.
All right, let's get it back on track.
Yeah,
Come
let's.
on.
We're diverted.
Peter, speak.
Nick,
good
get us
good
back
time.
in line.
Peter, Peter K. It's your turn.
All right, this band to me is heaven and hell. So both sides of the coin as far as I'm concerned. So I'll give a little bit of context. I think in Australia, and maybe Bicycle Legs can confirm this, I think we were probably a little bit ahead of the curve in regards to getting on the Guns N' Roses bandwagon. I think we actually bought into the Guns N' Roses album ahead. And I think that I read about it in an Aussie magazine called Duke Magazine, which I used to read religiously every week. Also got the Kerrang, and these are the days before the internet where you read actual articles and reviews. And just reading the review of the Guns N' Roses debut, I thought, look, I'll buy into that. Bought the album, listened to it, and it sounded completely different to whatever was going at that time. Now, around that time, you had Motley Crue, so Theatre of Pain, which was a major disappointment. That glam, all the pink outfits was ridiculous. Girls, Girls, Girls came out. Didn't have a lot of edge. It was faux edge. You had Dokken, you had Rat, all very good bands, but there was no edge. You put on, as soon as I put this slab of vinyl down and I listened to Appetite for Destruction, it didn't sound like anything else at that particular time. So this may have been late 1986. It had danger, profanity, as Jamie said, well-written lyrics, covering a lot of subjects that were like kind of street music. It was sort of, about drug abuse, about people from the streets. And I think that when you read more deeply into the story of the characters or the people within this band, it wasn't contrived. I actually think they came from pretty, dodgy backgrounds. Like Axl was like basically a street kid. He came from the Midwest, traveled into LA, and went through a lot of different experiences. I think all the lyrics in that album were his experience. And, it's typical for a debut album. It's usually the debut album in a lot of bands is their best because they're hungry. They bring out all their experiences into this first album and they put it in. And that's what I think this band did. And I think it's like a proverbial monolith for the rest of their career. So it's a shadow that hangs over the subsequent albums. And the thing that I liked about this album is the influences. So you had Axl, who's the classic rock guy. He loves Elton. He loves Freddie Mercury. Slash is like the classic hard rock, guy. He likes his Michael Schenkers and all those type of hard rock. Izzy, I always put him as the Mick Taylor. He's like a Stones guy, the rhythm guitarist, and he is the X Factor. Because you know, when he left the band, don't tell me the quality definitely dropped. So he's like the X factor of that band and the main songwriter. Duff is the punk guy. He loves his Sex Pistols, the Damned and the Clash. So he brings that sort of element. And then Steve Adler, the goofy drummer, not the greatest drummer, but boy, he had swing, he had groove, and he had a good sense of click. And when you put Matt Sorum in, who's a greater technical drummer, it's soulless. So all the elements into that one album, killer. No filler on that album, top to bottom. It is a brilliant album. And if you were going to look at reference books in 100 years' time and look at the 1980s and put up the look at the category of hard rock or heavy metal, Guns N' Roses will be in there. I'm sorry, your bands like Rat and Dokken and all those other bands, they won't be mentioned, but Guns N' Roses will be right at the top in that category, in that reference book when you're looking at 100 years. People 100 years' time looking at in respect of that. So in respect to the subsequent albums, Use Your Illusion 1 and 2, I listened to that recently. There's some really good solid tracks on it, but there is a lot of filler. So I grant that. And it's a drop in quality. And I think it's the reason why there's a drop in quality is because Izzy left the band. The things that put it into the hell quality is the petulance. They became tabloid. I've had a few experiences at their concerts. Like there was one concert where they played in Sydney. I think this was just around the spaghetti incident. They came on at 12:30 in the morning and it was bloated. There were all these guitar noodling and I just left at 2 o'clock in the morning. I just gave up and just left. It was just a noodle fest. It was just, they basically had a song list of about 10 or 11 songs, but they were drawn out and it was just noodling. And that wasn't the Guns N' Roses in 1986 where they were dangerous, they were edgy, and they were just doing something that was just different. And that's why they cut a niche in that sort of musical genre. So where they are now, I saw them about 3 or 4 years ago just to see if they had improved, because the time where I saw them at 1:30 in the morning, there was basically just Axl. So they had the three, they had Duff and Slash in the band. Again, they were better, but they were dining out on that first album. You look at the song list, you could just tell the quality and the engagement. That first album just sounded like a breath of fresh air. And then when they were doing bits out of whether it was Chinese Democracy or the Spaghetti Incident, no, not so good. So they've still got problems, but as Jamie said, they're getting the crowds in. There's not too many bands of that 80s era in the hard rock genre that are pulling in 45 to 50,000 people. So as a living entity, as an artistic entity, the question is definitely, it's a big question mark. So for me, if you're talking about 1986, Heaven, I think they're brilliant. And if you're going to have one album, that's the album. They're going to be remembered for it, and it's iconic. As for the rest of it, yes, there was a decline, yeah, that's my opinion. So I'd put it more in the brilliant category if you were talking about 1986, because that had a big impact. And another thing, just a shout out, like I always try to push Australian bands. They were very supportive of Australian bands like the Angels, Rose Tattoo, even AC/DC, and they always sort of said, look, you know, we're influenced by those bands, and they're always sort of pushing them into the US. And yeah, on that sort of thing, that's why I've always quite favorable when I think about Guns N' Roses in 1986, 1987. So there you go. Don't know if I convinced you, Grant, but I gave it a crack.
Well, they actually did a Guns N' Roses cover, a Rose Tattoo cover on Live Like a Suicide EP.
Yeah, Nice Boys Don't Play Rock and Roll, something. Yeah,
So,
they've played that a few times. Yeah.
So Peter, do you think it was just timing? They filled a void that was open at that point? Because they could have been, like we've talked about, it took them a year for the first album to take off. Do you think it was just a matter of David Geffen calling MTV and going, hey, can we get this pushed a little bit more? I mean, I don't know. It could have been easily just swept away.
I think the water did part. Timing is definitely a major factor. I think it's luck, it's timing. It was filling a void because there was a certain style of music at that particular time that was different. And, this style of music, which was not your sort of traditional glammy, it had a little bit of grit, a little bit of edge, covering subject matter and lyrical contact, which was beyond groupies and just the normal thing. It was a little bit more edgy. I think the public just lapped it up.
Can I add something to that?
Go for it.
I think we, as teenagers, without even really knowing it, was clamoring for something a little bit edgier, dirtier. Like you said, the hair metal was getting stale by the late 80s. And we heard GNR and we're like, yeah, that puts it up a notch. It's dirtier, it's more dangerous. And I would call Appetite the Nevermind of the 80s. It was almost Nirvana's Nevermind. It was almost like the warm-up to getting ready for Nirvana to drop Nevermind. We're like, okay, dirtier. And then a few years later, what's this all of a sudden? We kind of eased into it through Appetite.
The
Because
Game
we
Changer
know when
album.
Nirvana, when Nirvana hit, everything changed. Skid Row, who just started out like in '89, they had, they were killed like right off. Do you think that GNR could have? Do you think that Nirvana would have killed GNR? Because by the time they put out the second and third album, well, I guess it'd be third and fourth. I mean,
I think
Nirvana
GNR
kill
was blending
GNR,
right
you
in
think?
with that scene. I think they're blending right in with that scene.
Yeah, they were.
No
Because
I
problem.
you
think
had
they're
the
blending. Okay.
Yeah,
absolutely,
You could
because you had the
listen
punk
to-
element.
Yeah, you could listen to Nevermind and Use Your Illusion back to back. They came out the same year, and you could play it at a party, and no one was bitching. But if you put in White Lion in 1991, people were
were
gonna go,
doomed.
dude, what are you doing? You're killing the vibe.
Well-
Absolutely.
Well,
And to be fair, I mean, Use Your Illusion 1 and 2, we may, disagree on whether they're great albums artistically or whatever, but they.
Oh,
Uh-oh.
bicycle legs. We're losing it again.
That
In the
bloody
interest of
Aussie
making
internet.
sure, in the interest of making sure everyone gets their turn, though, let's let Nick get his review in. So, Nick, brilliant or bad? Guns N' Roses.
Sold 7 million
I
copies in the
think,
US.
I think Bicycle Legs had a
Uh,
stroke. Oh, no, I froze.
We're having a rough night here.
How about that?
Okay.
Question, Jamie, did you say white album or shite album? I couldn't hear.
White Album.
Oh, white album. Okay.
Number nine.
Yeah.
That's bloated.
Well, I agree. Number 9 could have. We don't need that. Yeah.
That's cutting edge, Jamie.
I thought I was going to be the only one to, in the negative camp, in the bad camp, but I'll be piling on. The topic I think was brilliant or bad. If I had to choose, I'd say bad. When I look at brilliant, I look at it beyond just one album. I look at it over a career arc, more than one album. I would also factor in perhaps to and maybe give them credit. I would look at whether or not the musicianship and the players and on their individual instruments are at the top of their field or were some sort of innovator. I would give them credit for their songwriting if they ushered in some type of new type of sound or did something original that way. So the issue here is I find that their first album was brilliant. I'll put it in the brilliant camp. There's no denying that Guns N' Roses and maybe Mike Klink, the producer, captured a certain spirit and energy. They got it on tape. It was dangerous. It was raw. As everyone said, it's kicked the ass of what was coming out then, which was getting very stale. Love it. In prepping for this, I tried to get through all the rest of the albums. I couldn't do it. I really tried. I tried 3 or 4 times to get through stuff. I'll give them credit for this. Their whistling is brilliant. Some of the most brilliant whistling.
All right.
Their whistling is in rock and roll history. They're brilliant whistling, and I'm being a bit facetious, but it's true. When I look at their songwriting, after the first album, they're mostly known for cover songs. You've got Patience, you've got November Rain. That to me is the indictment of the songwriting. The fact that after the first album, they didn't move the needle all that much. There's some minor hits. They did a couple things, but you've got, as it was described, a lot of bloat and filler, cover songs. And they did 2 songs, the 2 biggest hits were covers that didn't need to be done. I mean, of all the songs of the world, I just brutal. As far as musicianship goes, I think Duff McKagan doesn't get enough credit as a bass player, being a bass player. I think he's a very good bass player. He's certainly above average. And in prepping for today, I was impressed with what I was hearing from them, even with some of the albums that I hadn't heard before. I think he's a very underrated musician. Slash is a decent guitar player. He's got a lot of Slash has flash, and he's got the Abe Lincoln hat, or Dr. Demento hat. Okay, he's fine. Drummer Adler, I liked. He had a lot of energy, dangerous drummer, but I don't know if you put him at the top of the list. When we get to vocals, though, boy, I really can't take that guy. I can't take him. And I wrote down, Grant, it was so funny in prepping for today, I wrote down cat in heat, because that's what he sounds like. If in summer night, you hear a cat out there going,
I just don't get it.
That is what he sounds like to me, mixed with the little Curly Howard. So if you like the Three Stooges, you'll love that guy's voice. He's like, and
I just don't get it.
And in the lower registers, and I try to get through this, I try to get through the material, I'm hearing Marlboro Red Tops, I'm hearing chocolate, I'm hearing coffee in his voice, I'm hearing phlegm. I just can't take it. And the thing, when they evolve past that first album and they're getting more serious with a lot of piano and bombast and seriousness, and then that voice kicks in like Curly Howard or a cat, it's almost Spinal Tap-esque. It's so silly. So I just, and maybe I have the personal bias, because I'll finish on this, because I don't want to pile on too much, but I had a chance to see them in 1988, the summer of 88. They're opening up for Aerosmith. It was the tour of the summer. You've got the top band touring off of Permanent Vacation with all sorts of hits, with this dangerous band from LA. That was, my recollection is a little different. I thought that album was, and their popularity was building that entire year. But it was this dangerous bill, and I saw them at a Orange County Fairgrounds in New York. Anyway, first 3 songs they came out, and I'm like, oh, this is Guns N' Roses. Wow, they're pretty impressive. And then the wheels came off. He couldn't sing after that. His voice was shot. Then they went into some ridiculous blues jam that reminded me of something that you would do when you're 16 years old. It was brutal. And I thought they had a chance to go out there with 8 or 9 songs and really knock them dead. And I try to find that concert online ahead of today, and I couldn't find it, although I did see some other shows, and his voice was in better form, but boy, they really left me flat and others. Matter of fact, in prepping for today, I called my friend who was there with me, and he didn't even remember them opening. He remembered Dawkins, because he saw Aerosmith twice, and he saw them in Philly. He remembered Dawkins, he didn't even remember Guns N' Roses. So, they had a chance to blow us away with their live show, and at least for that performance, it was flat. So, in talking about, some other people have said, I found the first album brilliant, Whistling brilliant, but if we're going to have to pick and choose, I say they have to be in the bad camp, because after that first album, it just, to me, nothing came close, and it fell off the table.
All right. Well, I guess we know where the numbers lie. 3 to 5, I think. Joe has dropped out, but I think he fell on the bad side of things as well. So I'll try to explain, and I think I can explain why someone like me would like it. I think I could explain why someone like Jamie would like it. And we could probably, make it understandable, but I don't think we'll be able to explain in a way that it'll click and you'll say, now I get it and I like it, because I think it comes down to two, for me at least, to 2 specific things. So for me, one is distance to it, because 1991, that's when I was born, so obviously never really had a chance to go and see them all while this is happening. Never had a chance to be there and be a part of it. What I got is the public perception and the legend, and because they're characters, the public legend around these guys it elevates them to a a space where as a teenager you're going in and you're like, I'm tired of listening to what all the people I'm tired of watching what's on Much Music. I don't want to listen to what's on the radio. I want to listen to that cool, dirty, hard thing that everyone respects, or at least, as we've learned here, that the media at least made us think everyone respects, but that's still edgy and cool. And that was Appetite for Destruction. I can remember me and my friend when we went and we bought the CD. We had done our little research and said, oh, like we think this is the one for us. We got there and we open up the CD after we're buying and we're walking home and we're looking through the insert, and we were already sold because there's violence going on and there's cool things and it's gritty and it's like a comic book, right? So I heard a lot of people saying, it's juvenile. Juvenile is not the right word. Arrested Development. That's who it said. And I think that, and Jamie, you mentioned it came out when you were in high school, right? I think it's ubiquitous with like the teenage rebellion spirit. And you say, Grant, you've talked about how you think did it just fill a void? I think it did. I think it filled a void when the heavy music that was popular at the time was not new and fresh and cool enough for those teens. And grunge hadn't quite come yet, right? So there needed to be that transitionary sound of this is edgy and this is cool, but you'll still feel like a cool guy can go up to and talk to a girl, right? Like it wasn't so cerebral and technical that you felt nerdy, but Slash's solos were still cool and impressive enough that you were like, yeah, that makes me pumped up. That makes me feel good. Now, Use Your Illusion 1 and 2, that's probably where I'll lose everybody here. But talking about how they're characters, again, those albums for me, I just come off of Appetite and it lived up to the hype for me. It lived up to everyone saying this is a mythical album, and we went and we listened to it and we're like, this is the best thing we've ever heard. So we go to the next album and it's bigger and it's bolder and it's huge, it's expansive, there's big sounds on it. They take their time. Slash gets to do really epic guitar solos. The solo in November Rain is it's gigantic, right? It's huge sounds. The solo on Estranged, I can remember sitting and listening to Estranged the whole way through. I didn't have the attention span for that as a teenager. Somehow I did it because it took me to another place. And specifically, I hate to say it, but it's probably not really that much about the music. It's probably about the fact that the sound it's almost like a boy band, The sound was perfectly matched with the characters that they were. And Axl Rose is such a damaged, he's the villain, right? He's either an anti-hero or he's kind of a villain you root for a little bit. And the lyrics and the sounds and the soundscape of it all came together to me, and it just clicked. And I was like, I'm listening to this guy fall apart. And it's a story that as a teenager, when you feel like everything is falling apart, you can relate to, right? So it was engaging, and it let you say, in that teenage headspace, it let you be aggressive, it let you be sad, it let you be thoughtful. And to me, it all worked every single time. Now, I think for everyone else here, you all had the experience of knowing the context around it and maybe saying, in the full scheme of things, maybe it's not that brilliant. But for someone with a little bit of ignorance like me, and looking back through the haze of the hype and all that, it becomes brilliant. So I don't want to disagree, because one of the fun things for me is listening to all of you and hearing and learning so much. And I can see that maybe it comes from a place of ignorance, but it's almost like that Hollywood sheen, right? If you see the trailer for a movie, you get all excited, all your friends are talking about it. You see the movie, you talk with your friends, and that experience in and of itself is magical, even if the movie itself was maybe not as good as you thought it was. So hopefully that helps you understand where people are coming from. hopefully I didn't speak for anyone out of turn. If anyone, you know, in the comments thinks I'm full of shit, let us know. But
What year did you
anyways,
buy those albums for the first time?
God, probably around we were 9 or 10 when we started started trying to learn instruments, and it was my guitar teacher, I think, was the one who recommended it, because he wanted me to learn Sweet Child of Mine. And so probably 2000, 2001, 2002. Geez, yeah, we were young, you know, we were young, probably not even really teenagers, but oh, maybe 2004. That's hard to say. I don't know. I guess they're not really that brilliant because I don't remember, you know, the details of getting it, but I do remember the experience, right? You know, that's the part that goes for me. Anyways, we still got a little bit of time here, so why don't we open the panel up for discussion? Pete, you look like you got something to say.
Well, yeah, let me propose something here. I think I'm the oldest one here. So the thing that was nice about us as we grew up with our bands, we didn't know anything about them. We didn't know their personalities. We didn't know a lot of those internal things. And as we have gotten older and had more and more access to find out about things, then sometimes you can go back and go, oh, that guy was a real jerk, or this or that, the other thing. Axl was one of these guys that all of a sudden you knew everything and more than everything. And it became something way bigger. And it's almost like people who don't really like hockey, but they go to games just to see a fight. You know, you follow and you're like, oh, what are they going to do next? They're so dangerous. They're so dangerous. And I really think that all the things that we've talked about is that a segment of the media, and I'll call them out. I'm Rolling Stone and that whole group with the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and all those, they latch on to somebody and they will promote them for the rest of their existence. They did it with Springsteen. Sorry, don't get it. If you like Springsteen, awesome. I don't. And they did it with Guns N' Roses. They could do no wrong. They were going to tell you over and over they were the best. And then they swapped right to Nirvana. And they were the best band ever, the most influential band ever. They're the next Beatles, blah, blah, blah. Fine, you can believe it, not believe it, but the media was there pushing it all the time. And all these years later, people are like, oh, were they as bad as they really were? What's that Axl guy like? What's he doing? He's such a train wreck. He's like, oh my goodness. It had nothing to do with music. Bands are following them. Great. They're filling stadiums. One, there's really nothing else to compete with. All the other big legacy bands have gone and dried up. But you kind of go, well, I heard that they were just so combustible and so compatible. And you're like, let me go see what that looks like. And most of the time at this stage, they're not doing it. They're in different stages of their lives. But my point is that Axl was one of those very first guys that all of a sudden, his whole history and everything was right in front of you all the time. And to me, it overshadowed the band. It just it didn't have anything to do with music. And that made it difficult, I think.
Oh, that's very true. I think, you know, I think it's a really good point, because like the character, like that can't be stressed enough. The characters of Axl and Slash, really, those are the two, Duff to an extent, but Slash and Axl are the ones that are pushed out, right? It's such an intrinsic part to the sound. And I'll fully admit, I probably wouldn't be as impressed with that sound if it didn't sound so perfectly tuned to those characters, right? Like there is some artistry in that match, you know, and whether that's their artistry or that's the artistry of the label, and, you know, the costume designer coming in and saying, put that hat on, because that looks like you play. You know, I don't know, but whatever that brand is, whoever put that all together, and if that's just a happenstance, personally, I think it's corporate and in a weird way, but it's also really genuine, which is it's a unique thing.
Yeah.
So I'm interested, Axl's voice. Could we get a hand count though? Who likes Axl's voice and who doesn't like Axl's voice? So I feel like I might be
which one first? Which one? You want all the hands for
I don't
like?
mind it.
let's go with like.
I don't
You know,
mind.
I didn't mind it back in the day, but I must say
Okay.
it hasn't aged well with the times.
I would
I
love
now
to
see
hear-
their point of view. It still doesn't bother me, but I see their point of view now.
I would love to hear what you think is so great about it.
Okay.
Well, that's subjective, and that's you're not gonna
Yeah.
can't really argue
Yeah.
that.
Well, I
No,
just,
no,
I'm
but
just curious. That's all right.
It is a good question. So I like that he has distinct voices. He's got his funk voice, right? He's
Mhm.
got his screeching yell. He's got his kind of more soulful singing, and then he's got his half funk, half aggressive, and they all flow together. And I also just love and I'm gonna get head shakes for this, I know, but I love the distortion, the natural distortion he can put in his own voice. I think, we talk about transitions. That's a sort of transition from, clean singing to getting towards, mainstream bands having, screamo, or whatever they call it, nowadays, that became popular. And that, if you think about that in the 70s, like there's no way anyone would say that's music to hear it. So he has had an influence, I think, in that way. And I personally love that distortion on his voice, and I think he's really, really good at doing it. And he has distinct voices, which again, it leads into that whole character thing, right? It's almost like he took an inference from like hip hop or something, where he's creating characters in his songs. I don't know. I guess I don't have a great answer, but to me, it falls down to it's interesting. There's many different styles he attempts, and whether he succeeds in them or not, personally to me he does, but that's probably because I don't know enough about those styles. And I think he's just got a really unique distortion to his voice that's powerful, aggressive, and I like it.
Yeah,
Makes sense.
Yeah, tangy.
you-
I describe it as tangy.
you can't argue that Axel's voice isn't distinctive.
It is.
No, you
clearly.
can't argue that. No.
No.
In the same way as King Diamond.
Or Getty.
Yeah.
Or Getty.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Or
yeah.
Getty.
Good point.
Listen,
Excellent.
Geddy Lee.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people I know who will not listen to early Rush simply because of Geddy, or people
Yeah.
won't listen to Megadeth because they don't like Dave's voice.
Yeah,
Absolutely,
the people who can't
absolutely.
get into Yes because of John Anderson.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
I still can't accept King Diamond's voice. Can't do it.
Yeah, well, you're not alone. There's a lot that it takes a while. It takes a while to yeah. But I think with Axl Rose, I think he's got that. If you watch them live, he's definitely got a voice or vocal tone that cuts above the band.
Yes.
And whether you like it or not, it works. And in regards to Axl's vocal capabilities, if you listen to Chinese Democracy, there is a song on that album where he sings in a baritone. And it just freaked me out when I first heard it. It was just like, is this Axl Rose? He's singing. So I sort of suspect that the Axl that we know is actually not his real voice. It's like a falsetto. It's like maybe Barry Gibb.
Yeah.
Because everyone thinks, oh, the Bee Gees, that's their real. No, it's not. That's their falsetto. They hit on something and they did the falsetto from 1975 onwards. I think that Axl, that's his voice on Sweet Child of Mine and all that is actually his falsetto, and he's just been using it. But his real voice is probably mid-range or maybe a bit lower.
Well, and that's not uncommon because it's more known now as all these vocal coaches come on and analyze people. A lot of the ones who do have those real strong high ranges, sorry, my autofocus again, are more baritone. Jeff Tate is a baritone. He's not a tenor. He's not a high voice. Todd LaTorre, who replaced him, is a baritone. They've got that low, rich, natural. Their speaking voice is down here. They speak like this. And they have these high extended ranges that they're able to use and bring into their tonal qualities. Axl's got a monstrous range, huge. Very few singers in rock were able to cover as wide an octave capabilities as he did, but he just never took care of himself. He just never cared. At least the impression that he gave to everybody is he just was always so messed up. His like you said, his voice would cut out 5 songs into a set, where he's like, oh, I can't hear the monitors. And so, I mean, it's just
How
all
is it
prima donna.
today? How is his voice today?
Well, it's aged and it's harsh, but
I saw him 3 or 4 years ago. It was okay.
yeah,
I don't
I
think
mean,
he's deteriorated as much as a lot of those artists from the 80s.
no, I don't think he has either.
No. Hey, another thing about Axl, he is a man of mystery, isn't he? We don't know a lot about him compared to a lot of, I mean, you look at a band like Motley Crue, we know they're inside, outside, every side. But Axl's a bit of a Howard Hughes character. We don't know a lot about his personal life. He doesn't give many interviews. There's a bit of a mystique, and I think that really adds to the aura of Guns N' Roses, and that probably, you know, the mystique and the legacy continues because of that. We're talking about him, but we don't really know him. We don't know a lot
I
about
agree
his
with that
personal life.
100%.
Great point.
Great point.
Great
That-
point.
Like that being said, I and again, maybe I'm the only one who feels this, but you know, I really do think that it comes through in his songs. You can tell like he's got a lot of internal pain and strife, and he's a very angry and proud person, and that comes through in his music, and you can tell because it still comes through, you know, in Chinese Democracy, not as well, the pride, right? Like he to me he's like a megalomaniac. He's like a, you know, the villain that almost completes his plan, but he doesn't quite. But you know, if you're looking back and appreciating it from a distance, it's still kind of
what's
beautiful.
that song? Get in the Ring, where he's
I
getting
love
in
Get
a
in the
fight
Ring.
with
Yeah.
some guy on his own album. He's like, "Were you mad because your dad gets laid more than you?" I don't even know who's yelling that. I can't remember.
there's
Wasn't that
they
a-
have like
Was that about Vince Neil, that song, or somebody?
No.
he names people. He names people.
Yeah,
I
he
talked
names
about a
people.
hip hop influence. Like that song is almost like a diss track. Like he just starts like Dave Carrera, like starts naming people and basically just
Oh, that's who he's yelling at. Yeah.
yeah. He's
He was doing the Eminem before the Eminem.
Yeah.
I might suggest, Nick, that you kind of validated our point that when we heard, and most of us agreed that there's all kinds of things to respect about Appetite, but we are experiencing Axl at Appetite level only as a singer. That's the only thing we're analyzing. It was afterwards. And now we had to see the singer plus all of this other baggage. So when we heard Appetite, yeah, his voice was cutting. It was strong. It carried the songs correctly. It's appropriate and it's new and it was certainly unique. So from that isolated contact, we're like, okay, it's just a singer in a band. We don't know anything else about him. And then it just unhinged, in my opinion.
so
Because now we know too much. And I
Yeah.
don't want to know that much. And I didn't want to know that much. And then it impacted and affected how I thought of him and viewed him as a singer, which
So
maybe
that's-
isn't fair, but it's an honest answer. So
No. I think it's great. I think it just crystallized in my mind. So, you know, if you lived through it, you know, it's not brilliant. It's just a moment in time, right? But if you're looking back on it as a story, or if you experienced it, you know, right when you're in high school and you're still in that mindset where like the world is still, you know, your story, right? And everything happening is fresh and awesome. Then it becomes brilliant because of its whole cohesiveness as a story, right? So it's almost
all
like
about
music.
it's all about perspective.
100%.
I think it was a
100%.
brilliant moment in time.
And well, let's not understate that too. It seems like even the people who don't like it respect that at the time it was a transition, and it was, you know, edgy and sort of a you know, it's almost like what's the I
Lightning in
can't
a
remember the
bottle?
word. Yeah, lightning in a bottle. You know, it's right
Yeah.
at that time. Wouldn't have really worked any other time. And you know, even someone like me who's a huge fan of Use Your Illusion 1 and 2 will totally appreciate that. You know, that's
full
subjective.
disclosure, I still listen to Appetite. I just program the 3 hits out and listen to the rest of the record because I love the deeper cuts, the ones that didn't get killed. I love them. And so
Yeah.
I can't listen to the other three, but the rest of the album I think is still tremendous to this day. So hence my brilliance there, but everything else no. So.
All right.
There
So,
you go.
even it's among the people who really like it, we see the other side's point, and among the people who don't think they're brilliant, we can all understand each other. So at the end of the day,
Yep.
I'd call this a successful panel.
Absolutely.
So we can go around one more time now. Everyone can get a last word in. If you'd like to plug a channel, if you got a book or anything like that, please feel free. We'll wrap it up right after that. So Pete Jones, we'll start with you.
Well, I don't have anything to plug, and I'm just enjoying my start of reading the Dio autobiography. So that's my weekend adventure. So I'll head back to that when we're done. But I love being a part of these, and thank you so much for letting me in here. So I appreciate it.
Oh, thanks, Pete. Thank you so much for being a part of the conversation. You brought some really great points to the table. Jamie, you're up next. What do you want to tell the people?
Check me out every so often on Sea of Tranquility. This Thursday night, we'll be talking about Ray Harryhausen movies, ranking all 15 movies. If you know Ray Harryhausen, he did all that stop motion stuff in the 50s and 60s. And come to my Facebook page. I know Grant is there. Let's Get Physical. It has nothing to do with Olivia Newton-John. It just has to do with physical media, comic books, the magazines, the Blu-rays, the albums, the CDs, cassettes, whatever you have that's physical, that's kind of like media related, even if action figures is cool. And come and have fun. It's a fun place.
All right. Sea of Tranquility and Let's Get Physical. Go check it out. Peter Kerr, what would you like to tell everyone?
Yeah, I've got a web channel, Rock Daydream Nation, and we just did a chat that's just dropped about creating the ultimate fantasy supergroup from the 70s, based on the members of Black Sabbath, Rainbow, Uriah Heep, Deep Purple, and Led Zeppelin. And we had Grant on it, and it was a gas, and also Marco and some fellow Contrarians. So check it out, and lots of new content coming up, Rock Daydream Nation.
Awesome. I just realized I'm very rude. Jamie, thank you for being a part of the conversation as well. You also had great points. Peter, thank you for joining the conversation as well. We're always glad to have all of you here. Nick, what would you like to tell everyone before we wrap it up?
No plugs today. Maybe a question. Grant, is that an Ohio State jersey?
It is.
Go Nova
It
Nation.
is.
Nova Nation.
Awesome. All right. Well, Grant, thank you, Nick. Pleasure to have you here. Grant, what would you like to let everyone know?
I'm going to plug Peter, even though he already plugged himself. Rock Daydream Nation, Contrarians. I'm working on some content for my channel sometime in mid-April or something, but that's way far off. But thanks for having me on here.
Well, thanks for being part of it. We appreciate each and every one of you being on here. You all have excellent thoughts to bring to the table. Bicycle legs.
Yep.
The last word. What would you like to let everyone know?
Okay. Yeah. Well, I have a channel. It's simply called Bicycle Legs. I just had 2 videos out this weekend. One where I am defending Devo's album Total Devo, which most of the fans really hate. And one where I'm reviewing the new Marillion album, An Hour Before It's Dark. And I must come on Rock Daydream Nation. I've tried a couple of times and it's fallen through at the last minute, but I'll definitely be there.
Doors always open, Bicycle Legs. Doors.
And I like that new Marillion. Shocking.
Yeah, it's good. It's a good one. Yeah. Well, check out my review. I think I summed it up pretty well. So.
All right.
And
All
Bicycle
right.
Legs, didn't we talk about something with doing some kind of Devo thing other than...
Yeah, I've just got to sort out getting like a Zoom license and that sort of thing. So
Yeah, there's a lot of red tape, but
yeah,
I'm interested in the Devo thing if we ever do it.
yeah. Thanks.
Awesome. Well, I'm sure everyone will look forward to that as well. All right. So I got to list off the old spiel here again. So thank you for watching the Contrarians. This has been Contrarians panel discussion, Guns N' Roses, brilliant or bad. We got the majority of the panel saying maybe not bad, but probably not brilliant. And a few of us out here, saying we still love him. I still love you, Axel. It's all good. Yeah, but he is kind of a bad person. Anyways, if you like the if you want to be part of the conversation, you can join the Patreon to be become part of the panel discussion. You can join the Patreon to join in on the panel discussions. And if you just want to see the channel grow, please like and subscribe. And if you know anyone who wants to be part of the discussion, maybe let them know about the Contrarians. We got some crazy ideas here, and we'd love to hear yours as well. So thank you on behalf of Marco and Martin as well. Thank you to everyone who has come here today. Thank you for watching, and everyone have great night, morning, day, whatever it is when you're watching. Thanks, everyone.
See you later.
Night.
Bye.
It's fun.
Great to see everybody.
Mhm.
Okay.
Thanks, guys.
All right. Take care, everyone.
See ya.
Bye.
Have a good one. Does anyone want me to leave the room open so they can keep chatting? Or